women in serious relationships / married etc. Everyone says communication is key, but what exactly does that mean to you, and how do you do it? The ability to take turns talking about everything. Further, being able to indicate my emotions vs my logical mind. Then husband takes his turn to do the same. After we both have our respected and listened time, we discuss the issue with honesty and trying to work together to find answers and the first attempt at a solution. Further, feeling safe, not judged, with him to be able to express unpopular opinions about X also opens him up to feeling safe in sharing deep and heretofore unexpressed ideas. Feeling safe enough to talk about something without feeling that your partner will get mad or judge you for it sounds like a good indicator. D. You really gotta spell it out for M. Don't assume your partner knows what you mean, want, think all the time, and don't assume you know all that about them. Forget all the games, niceties and hoping they get the hint. Yep, I've realized that hints like this thing looks nice, I want it, don't work if I'm hoping for a gift. And neither does wow, the laundry is really piling up hard work when it comes to house chores. I thought those were really obvious hints, but the responses I get would be get it then. No one's stopping you and oh dang, you're right. I realize that I really need to spell it out like, can I get this as my birthday gift? And can you help me load these into the washing machine? For things to work. XD. If myself or my partner does something that upsets us in any way, no matter how small it might seem, we bring it up and express our hurt or saddened from it, even if it was a comment made in a joking manner. We also don't stray away from any important conversations, even if it leads to hard and sometimes painful conversations. It's definitely something that takes practice, and I don't think being emotionally vulnerable comes natural to just about anyone. But if you and your partner have deep trust in each other and your shared love, it becomes second nature after a while, and is absolutely necessary. I still have trouble with this, mainly because it might just be an issue so small that it's not worth bringing up, because it hurt me for that few minutes. Like maybe I would be talking to him, and he's having a bad game or something, and respond in a slightly harsh tone, and I'd be a bit upset by that. But once the game is over and he has the capacity to pay attention to what I'm saying, then it's no longer an issue. It'd feel like I don't need to bring it up anymore because, well, technically the problem is already over, and being a gamer myself, I understand that you can't really split your attention to listen to someone else in the middle of a game anyways. Still trying to learn what issues to bring up and what not to. Honestly, for me, even if the issue is technically over, like you don't feel emotional about it anymore, doesn't mean you shouldn't still talk about it, because if you don't, the next time it happens, it'll bring up those current emotions plus the ones you hadn't resolved from the past. Emo. I wouldn't and couldn't be with someone who wasn't willing to have a conversation about something that hurt me, even if it's days later and it was just a little hurt. One of the rules that my husband and I have set if we are having an argument is that if either party still feels like there's unfinished business, the other party needs to stick around and keep talking it out. That way, no one leaves an argument with bottled up resentment, and no one gets to feel like they won without completely hearing the other person's side. Edit. Grammar. Edit 2. I've seen comments from several people who have had less than desirable experiences with partners who wanted to keep talking when the commenter just needed space. I'm so sympathetic to that. Often, I wish that my husband and I were more willing to abandon a passionate discussion until things got less heated, or until we got more sleep. We're just naturally huge talkers. We met in a competitive college debate setting, and I don't think either of us has ever changed his or her stripes in regards to how we approach differences of opinion. But I do wholeheartedly agree that sometimes the best solution is for the both of you to just take a breather. That's definitely one way to approach this issue. My partner and I will usually have some quiet time to ourselves so that we won't speak in the heat of the moment. But once we are cooled down enough, we lay out all the info, how we feel, why we did what we did, and get it all talked out. To me personally, there's no winning an argument, and I'm still trying to make it work like it's us against the issue rather than me against you kind of thing. Oh yeah, it all depends. Sometimes one of us recognizes that there's nothing to do but take some space apart. But we're generally very talky people as opposed to short-tempered people. So the more likely scenario is that we dig in super deep until we've turned the issue inside out. Haha. Andre, winning. I don't think my husband sees it this way all the time. But I'm definitely more likely to back out of a difficult conversation because I don't have the emotional energy to keep going, where he does. In that sense, sometimes it feels like he won when in reality, it probably just means we needed to step away and collect ourselves. Ask questions, and when they answer, validate their feeling instead of giving advice or telling them everything will be okay. Most of the time, we all just want to be listened to and have our emotions validated. In terms of conflict, remember that it's you and your partner versus the problem, not you versus your partner. Remain calm. Ask questions. Take accountability. Make sure each person is heard. And have that difficult talk until you are both okay emotionally and validated. Apologize. Hug one another. Tell each other you love each other. Then set down the anger and move on. No one can have consistent peace and joy while carrying anger or a grudge. Talking about your feelings. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. My BF does not know how to do that and bottles everything up. I on the other hand tell him absolutely everything and probably too much honestly lol. But then we get into a slight argument and suddenly he's dumping months worth of indiscretions and wrongs I've committed. Things that I do that annoy him or he wishes it stopped doing, etc. It absolutely blows me away every single time and really hurts me because I even ask him periodically if there's anything I do that bugs him or anything he thinks is wrong in our relationship so I know and we can try to fix those things, but he always says there's just nothing wrong until he's mad. It's caused a lot of pain for me and a lot of arguments for both of us. He admits he doesn't know how to share his feelings and doesn't want to upset me, which I understand. But I told him that if he doesn't learn how to communicate now it's going to be very rough for him in the future. And even if we don't stay together, any woman he may ever be with is going to run into the same issues with him. He's now working to fix it and I'm working to fix some issues of my own. And we're doing quite well. But yeah, that's something that is absolutely crucial for a relationship. I found it very useful to ask what areas can I improve, rather than what am I doing that bugs you? It's then phrased in a way that's less like them complaining about me and more of an I want your help kind of way. When my boyfriend and I first started dating, I'd do a monthly check-in with him to see what I could do better or what I could improve upon to better our relationship. At first he thought it was a silly question to ask, but after a couple months, he realized it was actually kinda useful. It helped us to get to know each other's needs better, and it set us up for having those hard talks in the future. We're over 7 years in, living together, and are on the way. Shipping estimate 6-8 weeks. It's been 5 weeks since ordering. I'm too excited. I've never felt so happy and secure as I do with him. Yes, I forgot to mention that, but that's what I've started doing lately after our last big argument. Stating it in a positive way, like what issues do you notice that we can fix? How can I improve? What would you like from me? What else can I do to ? And so on. And I'm so happy for you. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. I wish you both the best and it sounds like you have a very healthy relationship going. Me and my BF are long distance and have been for 2 years now. Thanks COVID, but we make it work by having constructive conversations and supporting each other. To be honest, I had communication problems in my relationships until I just didn't. What changed is the person. I just found a partner who I have an extremely straightforward vibe with. He says what he means what he says etc. So I'm exactly the same. There is zero bullshit. And because he is so very stable, if I try some bull poop, e.g., my hormones make me say something ridiculous, I usually start laughing halfway through my sentence. Because we just have no capacity for ridiculous statements in our relationship. To me, communication is always being open with your partner. If anything on your mind is bothering you, tell them. Say you'd like them to help clean around the house more. They'll never know how you're feeling unless you voice it. Say you'd like your partner to spend more time with you and less on their phone or their gaming console. Tell them, chances are, your partner can't read minds, so you have to let them know what's going on. Even if you think you are being irrational or crazy or even overthinking the situation, tell them what's on your mind, and if they're the right fit for you, they'll more than likely help ease those thoughts. If you show them you're opening yourself up to them, they'll probably do the same. It took some time for my inexperienced partner to understand how hormones can affect my emotions, but I've explained it to him before and looked for a pattern in my own behavior. Best example would be how I'm usually okay with, let's say, refilling the water jug we have in our room when it's empty. But if I'm having my PMS and it's bad that month, I might look at the empty jug and wonder why I have to point it out to him every time to refill it. But once PMS period is over, I would be back to normal and wonder why I was irritated by that in the first place. So by now I do let him know ahead of time that I'm entering my PMS period and I might get a little upset, and ask him to chip in with house chores a little more in this duration. Took some time for him to understand, but it did. It doesn't happen often, but to me, if anything my partner does rubs me the wrong way, I will tell him straight away. Usually he will give me his reasons for doing it, and I'll listen to his perspective and try and put myself in his shoes, then reply accordingly. He never does it again. Like he won't vocalize that he's not going to do it again. He just won't do it. It goes both ways too. Only I will tell him that what is annoying him about me or said thing that he doesn't like won't happen again, and it doesn't. Communication is definitely key. If something I don't like happens, I can't just hold it in, or I will explode, then dissociate completely. I'm just happy he's the calm one, and his mother of his children taught him a lot about communicating properly. He knows my temper can be much shorter than hers. Only difference is she'd get physically violent, and I will just cut him off, which has said will hurt him more because he can deal with physical pain. Emotional pain, not so much. It's never gotten to that point though. Communication is so important. Make sure your actions are consistent with your words. You've all heard the wife that a million times, so I don't need to revisit it. But seriously, I've heard myself and so many other women talk about partners who say they love them, but then sit on the couch all evening, greet their beloved with what's for dinner, and never think about doing their share of the chores, when so little of our interpersonal communication is verbal in the first place. It's extremely important to make it believable by contextualizing it with observable actions. I think communication is not just about communicating the difficult or negative things, but it's how you interact with each other regularly, how you talk about the everyday mundane things as well. No one is a mind reader, and the only way we have for getting to know each other, our everyday selves, is through communication. We talk frequently and regularly about anything and everything. When we talk, we are open and honest with each, treat each other with respect, and offer the most generous explanation for every situation, rather than jumping to negative conclusions. We know when to talk with humor, when to be more serious, and we know how to read each other's subtle cues that tell us how the other is feeling. Sometimes we're not perceptive enough, so we just ask straight out. We treat issues jointly, framing it as us against a problem. We don't keep score. We resolve any conflicts as soon as is reasonably possible, staying up to do it if we have to, which is rare anyway. To me, it means adjusting your communication style and interpretation method based on who your partner is. A lot of general relationship communication advice seems to be written as one size fits all, which doesn't necessarily work, especially when the cultural background of you and your partner may differ. For example, I'm American and my partner is British. It took me an incredibly long time to realize when he actually had a problem with something because, to me, the way he discusses issues is so subtle. He, however, struggled with being offended by me quite often because I swear more frequently and I'm generally louder than he is accustomed to. Yep, unless you're really going for a couples counseling session where advice and suggestions are strictly towards the two of you. Many advice can be quite general. What works for one person's culture might not for another, and our way of telling someone we are upset might not be correctly interpreted by the other person. Hopefully you've got across the cultural gap though. Well, now it seems in my effort to interpret him properly I may be going too far to where I'm now reading into non-issues. But it is definitely improving. He even told me recently how my disorderly spice cabinet was bothering him, so that's progress. JP once commented on this, and I find it so spot on. You have to be willing to engage in certain amount of conflict in order to sort out what's disturbing you. You have to lay out your concerns on the table. You can't just say complain about what's wrong. You have to say what the minimum precondition for satisfaction might be. You have to offer that to the person you're negotiating with. Apostrophe. That's so true. Currently if I'm upset at something and I don't know how to say it, I'll at least voice out what I'd like him to do. E.g. I feel like he's really focused on his games today and I need some affection. I want him to enjoy his evening, but I still want some affection. I'll at least tell him, can I have a cuddle when you're done with your current game? And get that. You know, the stuff you don't really talk about because you think it is minor, or that it doesn't really matter? To me it is those things that build up and needs to be discussed. Once you get used to doing that, the bigger stuff is easier to talk about. At least that is what I have learned in my 30+ years of marriage, and I believe we are happier than we have ever been. That's some solid advice from someone who has been married for so long. I've only been engaged for half a year and probably getting married a little later. So it's always nice to hear some advice from y'alls who've been married for decades. D. To me, good communication means being honest with yourself too. For example, I may find myself getting annoyed because I cook dinner every day except takeaway day, and when I get home from work there is no hot drink waiting for me. They sometimes make me a cuppa, regardless of what my initial gut feeling is. E.g. I may consider using the missing cup of coffee to guilt them into something. I try not to air that immediately, but spend some time figuring out why it's bothering me, whether it's important, etc. Only then, once I know why it's an issue for me, do I bring it up. It makes the argument about me, and not about what I think they should be doing. We have also discovered that we tend to start silly arguments at certain times of day, a combination of me being tired and he having been drinking. So we now wait until daylight to try those arguments again. 99% of the time, we see no need for that argument the next day. Incidentally, this goes against the advice my twice married uncle gave everyone, to never go to bed on an unfinished argument. Sometimes the best communication is being able to loudly state I'm tired today, I want a hug/cup of coffee, and the equally important I'm having a good day. Can I do anything for you? Trying to talk about problems before they become problems. Talking about needs, expectations and anticipations frequently enough so that both people in the relationship know what the other is thinking. If something bugs me, or I don't understand some aspect of my partner's behavior, I bring it up in a calm fashion, not accusing, just sharing something that's been on my mind, and asking my partner to do the same thing. I will also communicate things in advance. Like if I know I might be irritable because I haven't eaten in a while, I will tell my partner about it and try to fix it before I actually get irritated. Discussions about the future and expectations are also crucial. Obviously they don't have to take place every day or even every week, but just discussing the topic frequently enough so that both people are on the same page. I really love this. I'm going to keep in mind your point about communicating something in advance. I remember times where I'd be a bit off with my ex, and it was because I'd had a bad day, or I was tired, etc. I could have sent him a text on my way home from work, saying something like, I've had a bit of a stressful day, so take no notice if I'm snappy. I'll try to cool off before I get home. Apostrophe. There were times where I definitely expected him to read my mind and pick up on subtleties because I'm fairly good at reading a room. But he isn't. I should have known better and just told him. We could have learned from each other. But it's something to think of for the future. We weren't right for each other anyway, and I'm glad I left him. The breakup was very much mutual though. My favorite statement I make to my single friends when they are having trouble with a guy is boys are dumb, they probably aren't texting you back for some grand game they are playing. They just forgot to text you or aren't interested. You have to spell it out and be forward. If you want to hang out, don't wait for them to say it. Don't subtly drop hints. Don't play games they aren't clever enough to figure it out. Tell them what you want. For me, it's constantly reminding myself that no matter how long we've been together, and I might think he knows me, he can't read my mind. So sometimes I'll be angry thinking stuff and I'll have to check if he actually knows the stuff. Also acknowledge that you don't want to say things at that moment, but that you will say it afterwards. Sometimes I really don't want to talk, so I'll say I have things to say, but I don't want to say right now because I'm angry / upset / tired of this topic. But make a vow to come back to it when you're more settled. Finally, the golden rule for husband and I. If there are two ways of understanding one thing, and one of them purposefully hurts you, I did not mean it that way, because I love. I will not hurt you on purpose. I might say things that hurt, because sometimes things hurt, but I never mean them as an attack to you. For me, it's knowing exactly what patterns we're in, and seeing exactly what my husband might do in certain situations. Because we've had a chat about it a few times, or I'm aware of his habits. We are currently in a takeaway once a week pattern because COVID. 2 weeks ago, I had a stressful time at work, so I chose. Last week it was his turn, and I knew, before I mentioned this week's dinner, that he would want Colonel's chicken. But that he would be hesitant about it, because I really don't like eating it at the moment. I leave the room when he's streaming / gaming, because he can be loud and sounds obnoxious to me. I straight up tell him that he is being annoying, and he doesn't take offense or sulk about it. He apologizes and changes his behavior. Compared to previous relationships, I knew I had found a good fit when I realized I could phone him anytime I wanted. We were friends for 5 years before being together, and he would answer without begrudging me. A text from him wasn't met with "oh, leave me alone." For me, the biggest overlooked factor in this advice: compatibility. Being on the same fundamental page, same communication style, fighting the same fight is what makes all the difference. My husband and I are yellers, never at each other, but we get heated. Yell for 10 minutes, then it's fine. But the content is never ever about the other's character, friends, habits. Conversely, my Bill and his ex communicated perfectly. By the book, no yelling, took turns, ended with a kiss. But the content of their fighting was about, money, hobbies, the future, pets, and their many incompatibilities. They are divorced, and my husband and I still happily have our blow up every 3 to 4 months. Sure is easy to communicate on a foundation of compatibility and aligned expectations. You simply cannot power through fundamental differences with good communication. Nothing is worse than someone expecting you to read their mind. This goes for any relationship. To me, it means calling things out, saying the things you think can go without saying. Often if I feel we're not on the same page, one will literally say, "I feel like we're not communicating well right now, and I want to make sure I understand what you're saying." Sometimes I admit I'm a little annoying about it too. My spouse often thinks he is asking for something, but I don't hear a question. Example, I get up from the couch and say I'm going to get a GL butter water. He replies, "A GL butter water sounds great. Tea." And I reply, "Are you asking me to get you a GL butter water?" It's not my intent to be annoying or pedantic, but this happens in bigger, higher stakes situations with less clarity. So I like to make sure we communicate well even with the little things. GS. None of that is particularly exciting, but I find it can help stave off misunderstandings. GS. If you have a problem, you talk about. This way you don't resent your partner for things he/she might even be aware of. It means broaching difficult topics without feeling that you're walking on eggshells. It takes a long time to develop that kind of trust, but if you start this habit right away in a relationship and encourage your partner to do so as well, it'll pay off big time. It means talk about things that upset you. If your partner did something wrong, then tell them. Don't go around building up your feelings until you explode. As rough as it sounds, you have to assume you so knows nothing. Don't assume he know you're upset. Don't assume he knows you're offended. Tell him exactly how you feel, or exactly what you're thinking. I always know, well, it's been 15 years, he should just know don't do that. No matter how long the relationship, don't assume the other person can read your mind. Just be open. There are days where I'm mad and I don't have a reason. Life's just been stressful and has me in a rough spot. I always tell him, I'm angry and I don't know why, but I feel this anger in my chest and in my heart right now. Not only does it help him understand that I'm on edge and to maybe back off me a little bit, which causes less arguments, but he also tries to make a point of saying or doing things he knows will cheer me up. He does impressions that kill me every time, and he knows clearly to take these steps because I expresses clearly what I was feeling. Just always assume you're so doesn't know what anything and explain it in detail to them, lol. To me it means that both parties get to speak and be heard. That we will try to understand one another and our feelings or thoughts. My fiancé and I have great communication skills. When one of us is upset, we tend to talk about it right away. It builds so much more room for growth. Yes to both parties getting to speak and be heard. My partner will talk about it immediately, but I usually need some time to process what happened and think about how to put it into words. But yes, I do agree with this. I'm on the autistic spectrum. It means that I must lay a huge amount of information before having my quirks show up, as it will determine whether my partner will worsen the situation for me and trigger meltdowns where I'll be in danger, or make easier on me and soothe me so my day isn't turning to brain dead until further notice. Before my diagnosis, that meant I got abused a lot, so it is vital that my partner shows radical acceptance towards my condition and doesn't stigmatize me with, "Don't use your autism as an excuse." I don't. Those are subtitles for you, so you get to know me and appreciate my efforts while my life is limited. Without communication, a relationship is the fastest setup for shutting down and become depressed. With, I'll be the person who will be the most understanding and supportive you've ever met. Authentic. Shining like life never broke, that amazed inner child. So, it means, if offended, ask what the person meant. They probably didn't realize the impact they just had on you and meant well. Offender. Use I sentences. I feel that way when you act this way. Do you think it's what we aim for? Can we find a better way to maneuver this and that? Rather than "you hurt me, you did it wrong." If your partner seems overwhelmed and lost, they need to gain confidence in themselves. Therefore, you are not the solution finder. You are the soother, so your partner comes to a state of mind where they'll find their suited solutions and build self-esteem from the success they'll fully own. You get to know you help them shine and find their own strength. So that means, do you need a hug? Tell me what you need right now. I can just listen. What would soothe you right now? Stress isn't a decision-making state of mind, so solutions will be shut down. But once that past best thing, most enabling, empowering question, what do you have in mind to deal with this? Rather than have you tried this and that? When you're happy, say so. When you're sad, say so. When you're angry, say so. When you don't know what you're feeling, tell them. If you're mad about something, take deep breaths. Explain it to someone and try to listen instead of only being the one talking. Tell them you love them, that you miss them, that you're angry, disappointed, proud, anything and everything. Women have this constant /they should know what's wrong. No one is a mind reader. Talk, explain, listen, say thank you, and say the word if you don't understand or can't see it from their angle. Be honest. Share your secrets, your joy, your anger, your needs and wants. Open up about everything and anything, even jealousy and hatred. Be honest. Be open. Telling my partner I appreciate him. Asking how he feels with our relationship every once in a while. If there's something I or we can improve on. If there's anything new he wants to try. Bringing up conversations like this about once a week isn't the easiest, but I never am left wondering. We thank each other for the little things we do for each other too. But yes, I've just recently started checking in with him about our relationship. I probably do that every other week or so. And so far it's always just it's all good though. Yes, I'm happy. Are you happy? But it's still nice to know. It means empathy. Listening to the point of finding empathy and understanding even if you disagree. It means not assuming. Asking for clarification when they say something that triggers you into thinking it's criticism. Also, using non-violent communication, using feeling language to voice a need. For example, I feel frustrated when you're on your phone when I'm talking to you because I want to connect with you and share about our days. HMM. For me, understanding is key. You can talk all you want, but if you are both, or one of you, is close-minded, then you'll get nowhere. Gotta learn how to compromise. Good point. Both parties need to be receptive to what the other person is saying and trying to understand each other's point, rather than focus on how to respond, argue back anyways. For my S/O and I, communication isn't always constant due to work and school, but we communicate about big things and consistently Snapchat or send memes to each other. We have been together for almost 3 years. It's all about what works for you. For us, it's about spelling it all out and not being afraid to say what we are thinking or feeling. But also, it's especially important that you know how to listen. Like actually listen instead of just thinking about what you're going to say next while your partner is speaking. Learning how to listen properly, especially if tensions are high, is even more challenging, I think. But just as important as being honest and open with your partner. Just say it. If you think it, or if you feel it, say it. Be honest. Admit when you are wrong and don't be too proud to say sorry. Be reasonable. And try to remember the saying, it's not wrong. It's just different. Everybody was brought up differently and does, thinks and feels things differently, so their way might be different to yours, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.